Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, welcome to the Planning Board meeting of August 17th, 2022. And I've got an echo, but what the heck. Anyway, everybody is here, it seems, so let's officially take attendance. We have Ed, Nina, Tom, Scott, Larry, and George. How about that? Everybody's here. So the first item is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. Anyone have any comments about them?
I would move to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
All right. Well, I'll go down the approval here. So Ed,
Yes.
Nina,
Approve.
Tom, yes. Scott,
Yes.
Larry, and George. Oh, no, George doesn't vote. I'm sorry. We're
I'm
all
above
here,
that.
so you
I'm
get
above
to
that,
not
Mr.
vote.
Chairman.
Sorry. Okay, the agenda. The first item remains on hold. The second item is item 220601, 1086 Kings Highway, Peterson Design Group. We approved this last time as complete. So we just need the finding of facts read. So, Ed, hit it.
I can do that. Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision in the application of the Peterson Design Group, Eric Peterson, for 1086 Kings Highway in Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on 6 July, 20 July, and 3 August 2022, and a public hearing held on 3 August 2022, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The owners are Charles Newcomb and Catherine Duffy, the owners, with a mailing address of 1086 Kings Highway, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The applicant is Peterson Design Group, the applicant, with a mailing address of 5 Nasons Court, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. In a letter dated 2 June 2022, the owners authorized the applicant to act on their behalf in this matter. Mr. Eric C. Peterson represented Peterson Design Group at the planning board meetings. The property has a street address of 1086 Kings Highway, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 35, block 6, lot 7 on the municipal tax assessor's maps. The property is located in the Goose Rock zone with both shoreland and resource protection zone overlays. The rear portion of the property is overlaid by the resource protection zone, 100-year FEMA flood maps adjacent to tidal waters. The front portion of the property is overlaid by the shoreland zone. On behalf of owner, the applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed for the property, recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 16707, pages 291 to 295, on October the 3rd, 2013. The recorded deed shows the prior address for the property, 306 Kings Highway. Kings Highway properties were renumbered in September 2020. Both new and prior address are shown on the town's tax records. Both lot and structures predate the land use ordinance and have legally grandfathered nonconformances. Per information provided by the applicant, the lot is legally nonconforming. The lot comprises approximately 8130 square feet, which is below the minimum required 40,000 square feet. The lot width is 91 foot, which is below the required minimum 100 foot. The existing residential property consists of 2 separate structures, a main single-family residence toward the front of the lot and a cottage toward the rear. Per information provided by the applicant, both structures are legally non-conforming. The main residence does not meet the minimum required side and front setbacks. Lot coverage is 49.43%, exceeding the required 20% maximum. Most of the lot is in the RP zone, where residential structures are currently not allowed. The remainder of the cottage and the entire main residence is within the 75-foot setback from the edge of the shoreland zone, where residential structures are currently not allowed. In an application dated 14 June 2022, the applicant proposes to remove the existing house and cottage and construct a new house and cottage, expanding their volume and interior area as is allowed under Section 83B1 of the Land Use Ordinance. The proposed plan will raise the foundations to 15.75 foot, which meets the minimum required 2 feet above the proposed FEMA flood level, the flood elevation of 13 foot. The total existing interior surface area of both buildings is 3,071.82 square feet. This is 55 square foot greater than the grandfathered original area of 3,016.82 square foot due to a previous expansion. The proposed area is 3,793.96 square foot, an allowed expansion of 25.8% from that original basis. The total existing interior volume of both structures is 28,403.94 cubic foot. This is 465 cubic foot greater than the grandfathered original volume of 27,938.94 cubic foot due to a previous expansion. The proposed volume is 36,305.11 cubic foot, and allowed 29.9% expansion from that original basis. As shown on the proposed site plan, the proposed lot coverage is 48.27%, which is slightly less non-conforming than the existing 49.39%. The proposed footprint of the main residence, 1771.25 square foot, is slightly less than its existing footprint, 1854.2 square foot. The footprint of the proposed cottage is unchanged from the existing, 773.27 square foot. This satisfies the requirement of Land Use Ordinance 83B1. The footprint of a non-conforming structure is not permitted to be increased. 16, the property is on public water and sewer. 17, the applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. The proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with the applicable state or federal law. Finding yes. The proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes. The provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Finding yes. The provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking, and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding yes. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding yes. Adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation. Finding yes. Adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding yes. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Finding yes, public water. Adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law. Finding not applicable. The proposed use will not have an adverse effect on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding not applicable. The proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. Finding yes. Existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Finding not applicable. When a proposed development will be located in the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance Article 10, the townwide regulation in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval for the development will also require that the board makes positive findings based on the information presented. That the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Finding yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. Finding yes. Will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. Finding yes. Will not have an adverse effect on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Finding yes. Will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. Finding not applicable. Will protect archaeological and historical resources as designated in the comprehensive plan. Not applicable. Will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use. Finding yes. Is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in section 5.6, erosion and sedimentation control of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Finding yes. Any negative finding by the board means the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that will otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 1011 and 1012E. The applicant, pursuant to 10.12.e, shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permit may issue or before any construction activity may commence. The applicant shall also provide the town of Kennebunkport a copy of the MDEP permit by rule prior to commencement of any work. 3, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances as well as the main DEP approvals. Dated 17 August 2022, Kennebunkport Planning Board.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve that finding of facts, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the finding of facts.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. And I'll just go this way for a change. So Larry?
Approve.
Scott?
Approve.
Tom, yes?
Approve.
Yes.
And that's it. Okay. So that one is all set. So that brings us to item number 3. Seashore Trolley Museum Car Barn. The Sebago Techniques, Henry Haas. This is a public hearing. It's the first of 2 public hearings this evening. Do we have any public dialed in?
We do. We have 5 attendees.
Cool. Okay, we have 5 attendees. So first step is to get the museum up to just briefly describe what you're doing again, so that any folks that want to hear about it will hear about it, and then we'll have the public hearing after that.
Good evening, members of the board. Everybody able to hear me okay on the
Yes.
microphone here?
Identify yourself, Henry, please.
My name is Henry Hess. I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics.
Right there.
On behalf of the Seashore Trolley Museum and New England Rail Historical Society, I'd like to just briefly discuss this project. They're looking to remove an existing trolley storage barn that's approximately 3,500 square feet. It's nearing its end of life, but certainly it's still structurally sound at the moment. But they're prepping to replace it with about a 7,200 square foot trolley storage barn. The barn itself will be located in a very similar location, just the northwest of the existing barn now. The tracks will be relocated as a part of that construction. The orientation stays the same, and 3 rails will be going into it, servicing the trolleys. There will be some pedestrian walks and improvements to the access road there, as well as some additional bioretention BMP will be constructed to make sure any treatment from the site any new impervious areas as well as the building are treated. The project did file for a DEP exemption for the impervious surfaces there under their site location of development permit. And that's kind of the long and short of the project there. The building itself is about 150 by 48 wide. I guess I'd turn it back over to the board and the public. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay.
Henry, I do have your plan set available if you'd like that displayed.
It'd be nice to at least have either the cover or the site plan or grading up. That's fine. But we can bring that up if the public has any real comments or concerns.
Okay. Anyhow, any questions from the board on this one?
I don't have any more questions.
Okay. So in that case, I will ask if there's anybody in here that hasn't. Members of the public have any questions that are here in the fire station? And, okay, if anyone outside on the,
No
has.
hands up on Zoom.
One hand's up, okay. I was going to say, bring a hand up. So could I have that person forward, please?
I said no hands up, sorry.
Oh, no hands up. Wow, you're no fun. Okay, so no hands up in that case. I will close the public hearing. And now, we need to vote to approve the change, so. I'm gonna-
I'll make
Make
a
a
motion
motion?
to approve the application.
Okay, made and seconded, and, so, okay, we'll just start down with Ed. Ed, you in favor? Okay.
Yes.
Nina?
Favor?
Tom, in favor?
Larry in favor.
Okay, so it's approved. Now,
We have a
we
findings
have a
of fact.
finding of facts to read.
Okay.
I know everybody's excited about hearing finding of facts read, but
Oh, yeah, 3 in a row. Okay. This is a Kennebunkport Planning Board site plan application of the Seashore Trolley Museum, 195 Log Cabin Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. The application is dated June 21, 2022, and it's for a 7,200 square foot building at the Seashore Trolley Museum site. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on August 3, 2022, and a public hearing held tonight, August 17, 2022, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. The findings of fact are as follows. The owners of the property and applicants are the New England Electric Railway Historical Society, AKA Seashore Trolley Museum, a Maine nonprofit corporation with a charter number 19410010ND, hereinafter the museum. The property has a street address of 195 Log Cabin Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 3, Block 1, Lot 1, on the Municipal Assessor's Tax Maps. The property is a conditional use located in the Farm and Forest Zone and consists of 75.4 acres. It is not in a flood hazard area. The applicant is represented by Sebago Techniques Incorporated with an office at 75 John Roberts Road, Suite 4A, South Portland, Maine, 04106, and has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a deed of sale, July 22, 1966, recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 1727, pages 80 through 81. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing approximately 3,521 square foot railway car barn and build a new 7,200 square foot building to house a replacement car barn over the same site for inspection, storage, and minor work on railway cars. The new building will be approximately 23 to 25 feet high and have the same orientation as the existing building, with 3 railway lanes entering the building, but located in an adjacent area northeast of the existing building. It is to be an open 2-story structure. There will be new pedestrian walkways and improvements to access the drive. The percentage of the lot occupied by the buildings on the site will increase from 2.7% to 2.8%. The other impervious coverage for access and walkways will increase the impervious coverage on the lot from 12.3% to 12.4%. Overall, the impervious net increase in the coverage will be 3,842 square feet. The new building will not have internal plumbing. Electric power will be pulled from an existing pole and will be connected by overhead wires. Storm runoff associated with the proposed metal roof building will be treated via a gutter system that will outlet over the landscape before entering the closed storm drain system. Runoff associated with walkways, gravel areas, and landscaped area will be handled by a bioretention filter, and existing culverts and drainage structures will be removed. Electricity shall be supplied from an existing pole across the parking lot where it will drop underground into the building. The new proposed museum building is within setback requirements from the nearest property line and Log Cabin Road. The applicant has filed for approval from the MDP for the proposed project under Site Law MRS 38, paragraph 488, section 29 exemption for existing development. The applicant has requested no submission of performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. A, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal laws. Yes. B, the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. Note, the building is open-ended and no hazardous explosive or flammable chemicals are proposed for use or storage. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes. D, the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding yes. E, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Finding yes. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding yes. G, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, nor has a significant detrimental effect which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding, yes. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding, yes. Adequate provision has been made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding, yes. J, adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation. Finding, yes. K, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding, yes. L, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Finding, yes. M, adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law. Finding, yes. The proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, nor will have such an impact that could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding, yes. Note, it is recommended that the applicant restrict the use of fertilizers or pesticides on this lot, and window screens or other design modifications are present to protect against bird collisions with the windows. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. Finding, yes. P, existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Finding, yes. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Articles 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. And as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 1012E. 1. The applicants pursuant to 1012E shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an improved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the planning board. 2. The applicants must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3. Window screens or other design modifications will be present to protect against bird collisions with windows. 4. Applicant will provide a letter of approval from the MDEP under Site Law MRS 38, paragraph 48829 exemption for existing development prior to initiation of the project. 5. Applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances as well as MDEP approvals. Dated August 17th, 2022.
Okay, I'll move approval of that document.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Larry,
Approve.
whatever you, Scott, yeah, that's right. Tom says approved.
Approved.
Yes, approved.
Okay, so that is now approved. So that brings us to item
Pardon the
number.
interruption.
Sure.
Town Manager Lori Smith is listening on Zoom, and she is requesting that each person in the board here count down from 3 to 0 on their microphone so she can hear the voice levels. So start with you, Ed.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Did we pass?
I think so.
okay.
Is that
All
new
right.
math?
Anyway, the next item is item 220604, 11 Bellwood Avenue, Peterson Design Group, and Eric Peterson is here to... So Eric, if you could repeat what we heard before, just quickly for folks. This is a public hearing again.
Three, two, one.
Don't do the chair again.
Guys, if you're getting attention.
Yeah, this one here? Yeah, it's coming up there.
Hello again, I'm Eric Peterson from Peterson Design Group in Kennebunk. Tonight I'm talking about 11 Bellwood Avenue at Goose Rocks, which is an existing house, shed and garage that we're proposing to remove the three structures and combine them into one new structure that has a much smaller footprint and uses a very small amount of expansion. Back in 1990, the garage was built on this property, and so that, being after 1989, constitutes the majority of the expansion that could be done on the property. So we are proposing an additional 43.47 square feet and 538.46 cubic feet of expansion, which brings us up to 30% in either case. So the existing house is 1,912.2 square feet. We're proposing 1,955 square feet. The existing volume of the house, shed, and garage are 20,241.88 cubic feet. And proposed house is 19,574.5 cubic feet. Overall lot coverage shrinks from 3,519.7 square feet, which is 9.37, to 2,686.18 square feet, 7.15%. And I highlighted on
Microphone.
the shaded gray area is the footprint.
Microphone. You carry it over,
Take the
I think.
microphone.
That's right. I was
Pull it out.
game show host. Turn this thing around. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So the gray shaded area shows the existing garage footprint and the house and the shed. And it's clear that the proposed house footprint is quite a bit smaller and more compact. This was a one-story house to start with. So we're taking the volume and area and spending it in a more compact footprint as a two-story house. In response to Ms. Perlmutter's request last time, we've added pergolas to the areas above the large stretches of windows and also extended a roof out a couple feet over the sliding glass door on this balcony so that it throws a shadow across the door.
That's very nice, and because you questioned me about information last time, and Ed sort of reminded me with an email, I did a lot of searching, and I came up with a site that probably is a good start on information for you.
Oh, thank you.
It's from Audubon, it's for architects and planners.
Thank
About
you.
bird crashes, and if you go there and click on the different sections they have, you'll find a lot of information. Also, Maine Audubon would have information, and Portland is looking at restricting building to, planning for bird crashes as well.
Yeah, since they've got so many glass box type
There are
buildings.
several cities that already have restrictions on in building codes where the design has to be bird friendly.
I brought a copy of for each of you of the revised elevation plan. Oh, do you want to pass them down? Thank you. So hopefully that satisfies the bird safety aspect of the project. The owners were happy to comply with that request.
I'm glad to hear that. There's nothing worse than finding a beautiful dead warbler in front of your feet when you come out in the morning.
We propose to make this house flood compliant, so the first floor elevation will be at elevation 15.75. The area existing around the house right now is about 8.3. The existing building elevation is at 8.3. So it's going up quite a bit in height, but the lower level is not a story. It's simply storage. It's not, it can't be living space. There can't be any mechanical equipment, nothing like that. What else can I tell you?
No, that's good. George, did you have any new questions?
No additional questions.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to again open up the public hearing here, and I'm suspecting that no one in here has questions. So, any raised hands?
No raised hands.
No raised hands. Okay, well, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will take a vote on this project.
I move that the application is complete.
No, we did that already last time.
Okay.
You're approving the application.
Approving the application. Yeah, that's what I meant. I second.
Okay, so, George, or you don't vote?
I don't
No, I keep forgetting, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I have that
Larry,
official look.
You approve, right?
I approve, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And Scott?
Approve.
Tom, approve.
Approved.
Yes, approved.
Okay, so it is approved, and I believe that my friend George does have a finding of facts.
It's thrilling.
Fantastic.
Yes.
The Kennebunkport Planning Board Site Plan Application of Del Mare LLC, 11 Bellwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine. Application dated June 22, 2022, for demolition of an existing single-family house, garage, and shed, and build a new house. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on August 3, 2022, and a public hearing held on August 17, 2022, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. Findings of fact. 1, the owners of the property and applicants are Del Mare LLC, care of John and Amy Piranti, 45 Wild Pasture Lane, Rowley, Mass. 01969, hereinafter the applicant. 2, the property has a street address of 11 Bellwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine. 04046, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 34, Block 6, Lot 2 on the Municipal Tax Assessor's maps. 3, the property is located in the Goose Rocks zone and is completely in both the shoreland zone and resource protection zone 75-foot setback. 4, there is currently a single-family house, garage, and a shed on the property. 5, applicant proposes to demolish the 3 existing structures totaling approximately 1,912.2 square feet with combined volume of 20,241.88 cubic feet. 6, an expansion in 1990 left 43.47 square feet and 538.46 cubic feet remaining within the 30% expansion allowance. 7, the proposed house is 1,955 square feet and 19,574 cubic feet and is within the expansion guidelines. 8, the new house will be less non-conforming, being farther from the water line, above the flood mark, and reducing total lot coverage. 9, the applicant has requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 10, pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. A, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirements set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with applicable state or federal laws. Finding yes. B, the proposed use will not create fire safety hazards and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. C, the proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value and diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes. D, the provisions for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to neighboring properties from detrimental features of the development. Finding yes. E, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting property as a result of noise, vibration, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. Finding yes. F, the provisions for vehicular loading and unloading and parking and for vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and onto adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety. Finding yes. G, the proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, nor have a significant detrimental effect which could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. H, the design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements. Finding yes. I, adequate provision is made for disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for the prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding yes. J, adequate provision has been made to control erosion or sedimentation. Yes. Finding yes. K, adequate provision has been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding yes. L, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Finding yes. M, adequate provision has been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law. Finding not applicable. N, the proposed use will not have an adverse impact of significant scenic vistas or on significant wildlife habitat, nor will have such an impact that could be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. Note, it is recommended that applicant restrict the use of fertilizers or pesticides on this lot. Window screens and other design modifications are present to protect against bird collisions with windows. O, the proposed use will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion. Finding yes. P, existing off-site ways and traffic facilities can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by development as far away from the development as the effects of the development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Finding not applicable. 11. When proposed development will be located within the shoreland and resource protection zones, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the town-wide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of the development will also require that the board make positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use, A, will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Finding yes. B, will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. Finding yes. C, will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. Finding yes. D, will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Finding yes. E, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. Finding yes. F, will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan. Finding not applicable. G, will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use. Finding yes. H, is in conformance with the performance standards set forth in Section 5.6 of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Finding yes. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. 12, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the Board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.e. 1. The applicants pursuant to 10.12.e shall notify the Planning Board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the Planning Board. 2. The applicants must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activities may commence. 3. Window screens or other design modifications will be present to protect against bird collisions with windows.
All set? Okay. In that case, like a motion to approve that. which was
I
just
move to
read.
approve the finding of facts.
I'll second.
Okay, so Larry,
Approve.
Scott,
Approve.
Tom, approve.
Approve.
Okay, so it is approved,
Thank you very much.
and we're getting it signed and such now. Okay, that brings us to item number 5, the Mills Road Development LLC, Teradyne Consultants LLC, Michael Tadamo, Wyland, whom we haven't seen for a while up here, but he's back.
Yes, it's good to be back in person.
We used to have an easel. Wasn't there an easel here?
We had one, yeah. I don't know what happened
The kid stole it. They'll take anything that's not nailed down.
Is this better on this side or on this side, or does it matter?
So, Mike, we can also bring it up on the screen here.
I've got a color one that,
Oh, yeah, you've got a colored one. I don't think we have that.
Right there is good.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, it's basically a color version of what we submitted. May I proceed here?
Yeah, proceed.
Ready for me?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go right
Great,
ahead.
thanks. Mike Tadama Wieland, I'm a civil engineer with Teradyne Consultants.
Tilt the mic down towards you a little bit.
Sure. There we go, is that better? Great. I'm here with Jeff Bowley. Jeff is the owner of this parcel and is exploring or is pursuing the development that we've submitted a sketch plan for discussion tonight. So you might recognize this site from a sketch plan we held back in January. And that of course, that was over Zoom, and it was a much different development, a much more dense development, and a bit more out of the box. It was much more smaller, clustered condo style development. After exploring that, Jeff has decided to pivot to what we've submitted tonight. So I'll start again by describing the site because it's been a while since the last time. So this is a 75-acre site. It's on the north side of Mills Road. The neighbors here, this is the resort at Goose Rocks, these condos. Across the street here is Sandy Pines, across Mills Road, and mostly just south of here, and a little to the east. The area within 500 feet of Mills Road is in the Goose Rocks district. Everything else is in the Free Enterprise district. I don't think that has much of an impact here. Both of those zones allow single-family residential as proposed. If you were to walk this site, you'd see a lot of ledge outcroppings, a lot of sort of pit and mound type topography with wetlands in the pits and exposed bedrock in a lot of the higher areas. There are areas suitable with soil suitable for subsurface wastewater disposal. There's about 15 acres of freshwater wetland on the site, and it's sort of spread throughout the site. It's shown on the plan. That's based on a delineation by Longview Partners. And then there are 4 documented significant vernal pools on this site. They're all in the north. So the 4, I'll point to the 4 here, 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 and here. They also show up on the plan that we submitted. And if that's not enough, this sort of site with the topography and the wetlands that I've described in the vernal pools has the potential to be habitat for spotted turtles, and those are a threatened species in Maine. And so, at the strong suggestion, I'll stop short of
direction of inland fisheries and wildlife. Jeff hired a turtle specialist, a wildlife biologist, to perform a study of habitat. He set traps all over the site in areas that he thought he could catch turtles. And the results were he did find one turtle very, very close to the property line. This up in the northern corner here, there's a vernal pool in which he found a turtle. From that and from his study, he determined what area is suitable habitat for those, and so that's delineated on the plan too. So this northern corner of the parcel has been identified as spotted turtle, good habitat for spotted turtles, and in fact there's been one documented. So given the wetlands, the vernal pools in the north, and the spotted turtle habitat in the north, this plan obviously clusters all the development in the south. And so the 13 lots are located in upland areas, obviously. There have been, Longview Partners again has done some preliminary test pits, or they've done some test pits out there, and found passing soils for most of these lots. We still have to do a few more to confirm that all the lots have suitable soils. But generally we're confident in the areas we're showing lots that those are suitable. We'll find passing soils for septic systems. The net residential area on this parcel, you take gross and subtract out the wetlands and anything unbuildable, it's 49 acres. So we start with 75, net residential is 49. So in theory, on paper, this site could yield 53 units. Of course, that would be really difficult given the wetlands and the challenges it has. So 13 is, we think, a reasonable number to sort of easily develop this parcel, or comfortably develop this parcel with 13, with a single dead-end road. The road shown on this plan is a little over, or it's between 1,400 and 1,500 linear feet. That would need a waiver, I think, from the maximum dead-end road length requirement, and we think we have a good case for why it's required. Avoiding the wetlands, snaking around some of the wetland areas, and then getting to some of these areas where we think lot development is favorable. It put the road at 1,400. I think it's 1,470 is what's on the plan now. So. We hope you agree that it's reasonable, and love to hear some feedback tonight, because obviously that's a hurdle we'll need to overcome, probably at the next stage, I guess. Open space is 54 acres, so probably 2/3 of this parcel will be preserved as open space, and the remaining will encompass the 13 lots and the road right away. So obviously we're in a preliminary stage, looking for some feedback tonight, and after we get that, we'll put pencil back to paper and put a little more design and detail into it, and come back with a preliminary plan. So thanks for listening.
Okay, clearly the fire chief will have to weigh in on the length of the road.
Okay.
That's a given. He's
Yep, that's fine. Would you recommend I reach out to him, or should we wait for sort of a formal review?
No, you can certainly reach out to Chief Everett, at any point in time.
Okay.
And if you want to get some feedback from him, I think you have all the information really needed to get a sense from him.
Yep.
As it relates to the road length. So, yeah, I'd reach out sooner.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anyone have comments?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Two of your lots have very long driveways. It seems like awfully expensive to put those driveways in, and I'm wondering why the lots are set the way they are. Lot 11 especially, but also Lot 6 and Lot 5, and you've got a very large Lot 7. And Lot 6 gets a long driveway to go way back in there. Are you planning to put the house right at the circle there, or?
When you say at the circle,
At
the cul-de-sac.
The roundabout,
for lot 5, for this,
for Lot 6, are you making a long driveway there?
yeah, lot 6 is in the back, so
Yeah.
that would, so again, it's, the lot layout has to do with, obviously, we're trying to get road frontage, and obviously it's reduced, in the cluster performance standards. Really, what we did was we identified favorable building envelopes and drew lots around them. And sometimes, for a couple of these lots, it does result in long driveways.
Yeah, it seemed not only expensive, but I think that's something you need to bring to the attention of the fire chief to get to those lots. You know, it takes a little extra
Okay.
length. And I see the soil. I see the soil profiles, and you got the whole 75-acre parcel set as Lyman C with rock outcrop Ds, and I question that with the vernal pools and everything. You've got ups and downs in there. Are you sure that's the characterization of all the soils? And the other thing about it is that those are very poorly draining soils, and are you really going to be able to put septic to all those lots that will work?
Yeah, I agree. So what we submitted, and it's just where we are in the process. So the ordinance asks us to submit a medium intensity soil survey, which you can download from the internet. And it's not, it's big picture. It's not necessarily accurate on a site-specific basis on a scale like this. At the next stage, we'll have a high-intensity soil survey.
Okay, you mentioned in there you had Longview Partners going out there. Have
Correct.
they finished the soil survey?
No,
No, okay.
no. We've done test pits on many of the lots, just as sort of investigations. But I don't have a soil survey where soils are mapped
Mapped,
yet.
okay,
But that'll come.
okay. Well, I'll let others ask questions, but I'm gonna do the same thing I did with Mr. Peterson. I made a copy for you of, sites for birds, when you design your houses and so forth. And as more and more different areas like City of Portland are starting to restrict designs to bird-friendly ones, I thought I would give this to you before you start building houses and planning your houses. You just go to the site and click on anything you're interested in. It'll bring you to a lot of resources.
Thank you. We will reference this.
Is there any provisions for further expansion from this later?
There isn't. As you can see, the end of the road is the cul-de-sac, and then lot 7 is beyond that. There's no reserved right-of-way. Again, as you get farther north, you start to run into some of these challenges with natural resources and habitat. So the proposal is to have those areas preserved. And so certainly as part of this, there's no. This is the proposal, nothing beyond this.
So you haven't decided if there'll be an HOA that designates walking areas?
We haven't gotten that far yet, haven't had those discussions yet,
Right.
well, of how the open space would be managed.
Right. Thank you.
The standard question, this road is private and will retain privacy, will not be a public road in any way ever. You're never going to come back to this town and say, geez, how would you like to plow it, right?
Well, I that's not really my decision, but,
Well, that's something the selectmen asked us to check with developers, so
is that their preference?
that is their preference.
Yeah. I mean, if you require that as a condition or something like that, I suppose it
No,
would
I
be
think,
binding.
Mike, what it is that, we've had occasions where developers have brought forward projects where roads have been designed and built to subdivision specifications with a thought that if I build it and design it to the subdivision specifications, it should automatically be accepted as a town road.
Sure.
And that's not the process in Kennebunkport, where all of that has to go through a Board of Selectmen process and then ultimately a town vote. And so
Understood.
what the selectmen did a number of years back is they developed essentially some criteria or more of a policy that if a developer were to bring a road forward, there are certain questions and thresholds that have to be met. And one of those, I think, that is the pretty significant one, is a clear showing that there's a public benefit to the road. And so generally speaking, I think what we've seen is that cul-de-sacs don't really meet that criteria. So
That's understandable.
but it's one of those things that selectmen wanted to make sure that that's something that's brought up in conversation early and often, so that there's no misunderstandings.
So there will be, I mean, in every other project I've done with Jeff, there's an association that takes over the road, and they're responsible for maintaining it,
Sure.
plowing it, and so on and so forth. So certainly, that would be the case here. Whether or not that changes 10, 20 years from now, again, it's in the hands of the HOA and the selectmen at that point, but.
That's right. No, and that's understood. I mean, that we've seen that a number of years later. The developer's out of the picture. It's an HOA, and the question comes back up again. And and certainly residents can always ask that question, but I assume that there will in the future be the same process or a very similar one.
Yep.
Ed, do you have any?
Just one thought. The small subdivision I'm in, the HOA has two major responsibilities. One is the road, you're gonna pay to plow it and possibly maintain it over the long term. But also there's common land, and if I understand what you're doing here, the common land is pretty extensive, and it has some unusual characteristics, and that it's got the 4 vernal pools. And is your thought that would be also owned in common by the HOA eventually, or whether you've thought about it or not? We'll be interested to know what responsibilities and rights will those people have to that common land? Are they going to be responsible for making sure it's not abused? For example, the spotted turtle habitat and all of that is. There seems to be a little more of a burden maybe on an HOA than there might be if it wasn't such a special area. Just a thought.
That is something we would normally see as part of the plans. The ongoing plans would be a sort of a draft
Sure.
HOA document.
So great questions.
Anyway,
We haven't discussed them, but we certainly will, and we'll work through it. And
I don't have the
Indeed.
answer. I'm just saying
I know.
it's something that
those
jumps
are good
out at
points.
you as you think about it.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount of common space, and it's going to be very. I guess we don't get enough snow in that area typically for it to be snowmobile territory. So maybe I'm, but some craziness or.
The kids.
Okay. Scott, do you have anything? No questions? Okay, Larry?
Kind of what I was saying.
So I appreciate this modification to your plan. It looks really great. And I like the location or the positioning of the lots on the higher contours. The thing that sort of stands out to me, though, is if you look at Lot 11, and then you look at the end of your cul-de-sac, right, there's a lot of land on the 50-foot contour. Were you specifically excluding that for any reason, or were you going to think about adding any lots in there? And that's my first question. My second question is, did you want to think about having a loop of sorts from the end of your cul-de-sac, looping around on the 50-foot contour back to the end of Lot 11 to join back on that road, which now connects Lot 11 with the main road? I don't know if that helps you at all, but I'm just wondering about, it seems like you have some areas that could be devoted either to additional lots and or some sort of looped roadway, just as a question. Yeah.
So through here, for instance?
Well, yeah,
Or along the edge of those properties.
So what I'm talking about is, you've got the 50-foot contours. I'm not sure so on here.
Yeah, they're not.
But this is 50 foot, all this is 50 feet in here.
Yeah,
So you
and these are wetlands.
Oh, that you can cross wetlands, right?
Yep.
So you can, I'm thinking, doing this, you can have this as another lot over here, another lot in here, over here.
Not well.
Yep.
If you brought a road or looping around here, then that provides.
So, Larry,
Larry.
if you're going to provide comment, you may want to grab the microphone.
Sorry, okay. So I'll just go over there. So you get the idea. I'll
Yeah,
repeat.
so this, I think I'll summarize for you
Yeah,
at the
okay.
microphone. So the suggestion was,
Well, that's
or the
my
question was,
Question.
did we consider, in laying this out, I think accessing some of the upland areas in the western part of the site with potentially a loop connecting back? The answer is we didn't necessarily. So the 13 lot threshold is really where Jeff wants to be as an applicant. It's a threshold after which you're required to go get a higher level of permit through the DEP.
Oh, I got you, okay.
So additional lots, it isn't really, I think getting to that 14th lot wouldn't be maybe so desirable. Once you get over that threshold, then you want as many as you can, right? Because it's got to
Okay.
be worth it to go to that extra level of permitting, which I think is difficult on this site.
Okay.
And really with this site, what we were trying to do is really minimize infrastructure, minimize impervious area, and cluster the lots. But yeah, good question. I think that part of the site, in another scenario could be developed like you suggested. And we will, I guess we'll look at it a little bit, but I don't think you'll see us back with more than 13 lots is my
Okay.
guess.
All right, thank you.
There would be more common infrastructure, for example, plowing
Yes,
to be shared by the 13 owners, of course.
that's true
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, George?
It's a really curious very curious property. Is there any primary drainage, a stream or something, or everything just sort of comes down into these low-lying areas?
So it does. Obviously, we'll do a drainage
Yeah.
study. We'll look at stormwater. There's really not there's really not a defined channel. It's
Okay.
not like everything's draining in this direction to this river and then it's out to the to the bay. Or
Yeah.
it's really pretty well distributed. Obviously, things locally drain into these wetlands
Yeah.
areas and then distribute themselves through the site.
But they're not moving out to a stream or something that goes down to the Batson River or...
There is a small stream located right at the, I guess, southwest
Right.
edge of the parcel. It starts right on the parcel, so it's not, I think I think if you, well, it rained today, but if you were to have gone out there yesterday, I think it would have been dry.
Yeah. So it does tend to then drain down toward there.
Yes.
All right. And just curious, Lot 7, it's 7.5 acres.
Yeah.
Why is it so big?
Yeah, so, good question. It is an outlier. So, again, it didn't make sense to extend the road further to start to pick off more lots up there. It is an upland area, and there is a market for this kind of big,
Mansion.
well, whether it's a mansion or, whatever, however it's developed.
Right.
So there's a market for both. There's a market for the
Okay.
1 acre lots, and then there's a market for the 7 acres at the end of a cul-de-sac, where people want more privacy and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So,
All right. Just curious. Thanks. No other questions.
Okay. Let's see, I guess we don't have any other questions. Do you have any other questions for us at this
I don't
point?
think so. I think good feedback. We appreciate your time and thoughtfulness, and we'll take that input and come back with preliminary plans.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. So, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I have one item that I would like to bring up for the board.
I have an item after you.
Okay.
Okay.
And so what I'd like to do this evening is I'd like to introduce you all to David Gilchrist, who is our new Deputy Code Enforcement Officer. He takes Andrew Welch's position with us. So Dave's been with us a couple of weeks now, and he comes to us from
back there.
City of Portsmouth, where he was a plumbing and mechanical inspector there. So
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah.
We also have a remote attendee handout.
All right. And, go ahead. Who's the remote attendee?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes?
Dave James here.
Oh, David James.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go for
Yes.
it.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Werner and Dave Powell and Mike and all the rest of you who've done a great job in finally getting these hybrid meetings to have audio that we can hear for those of us that are watching them through Zoom. Great job, and appreciate all the work that went into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, David. 3, 2, 1.
That's the new motto.
that's the new motto.
Okay, I have a question. I was remembering is it Bellwood, 58 Bellwood or something, that we have tabled for a while that's been withdrawn.
Langsford?
Langford.
Yeah,
Yes.
58
Yeah.
Langsford.
Correct, yes, it's been
Langsford.
postponed, yep.
Okay, I had read the letter from the attorney, and it raised a question in my mind. One of the points that attorney made was that.
Is this a general question?
It's a
'Cause that-
general question
okay.
about the land use ordinance.
Okay,
Okay, this is how the question came up, I just want to give you the history. If the question was on the view easement, affecting somebody's view, if you're building or somebody's constructing, and if there is no view easement with the property, so that the neighbor has no recourse, okay, we have in our guidelines for decision, causes for denial under 1010AN, the proposed use will have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas, and it goes on, which could be modified by, which could be avoided by modification. And also on 1010B, and I'm not sure I understand this sentence, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. To me, that's a scenic vista question again. So I'm assuming that these refer to public views and have nothing to do with specific view easement. What do we consider a public view? Would it be if it affected the view of 10 residents or visitors or the general public, or something that the public is always looking at? I don't know where to draw the line.
So my initial reaction to that is that I would be looking, I'd be looking more into the comprehensive plan for locations in town that have been described as scenic, and so scenic vistas are a thing that get described, and so I would be more inclined to lean on looking to the comp plan for guidance in defining and determining that, as opposed to trying to come up with a threshold, as part of an application, and also trying to define something that isn't defined in ordinance. If it was defined in ordinance, if scenic vista was something that was defined, that you could very then clearly, assign a threshold to, or define it.
What if it isn't in the comprehensive plan, but all the neighbors come and say, that's our scenic view? We've used it for years.
I think that's a question better suited for an attorney as opposed to me.
Okay. That's what I
But-
wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, just occurs to me that now that they're gone, we didn't ask about whether we
Sure.
want to do a sidewalk.
Yeah, I think it's fine to, wait. You can do it either way. You can wait until you get a preliminary application. I think with this type of project, there's quite a bit more info that needs to be compiled before they're
That
ready
sounds
for
fun, yeah.
prelim.
Yeah, okay.
And then that way as well, it also, I think it gives opportunity for if the public, wants to, come along for the site walk. I mean, we can certainly do it between sketch and prelim.
Yeah,
But-
but there are too many ifs in this one.
Yeah.
And the fire marshal has to.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest
Fire
with you, I'm
chief
not
says,
really
"Oh, you
concerned
can't do
with
that,"
the
then.
chiefs, with the road length limitation piece, for this. Most of those designations really are when you're dealing with hose length as it relates to, distances from hydrants and things like that. That's really where that number comes from. I suspect if we have a subdivision that's a septic and well subdivision, you're going to have to check off a box for fire suppression, whether it's a pond, and then at that point, so if you had a fire pond, now you'd be measuring, a hose length run from a fire pond, to a property. I suspect in this case, you're looking at 13D systems.
Yeah.
So the individual residential sprinkler systems. And at that point, it's more about just, having good travel access and less about a length limit. But,
Probably both on the road and the driveways.
yeah, yep.
All right. Well, so I will ask again for.
In that case, there'll be a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, let's, all in favor? Yay.
Aye.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, kids.